बोले वृंदावन श्री कृष्ण चंद्र की जय। ओम यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्र रुद्र मरुतः स्तुनवन्ति दिव्यैश्च वैर वेदैः सांग परक्रमो उपनिषदैर्गायन्ति यं सामगा ध्यानावस्थितर्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः। बोले वृंदावन श्री कृष्ण चंद्र की। We now join Pandit Umesh.
Let us concentrate on Gajanan Swami. Om Sri Ganesh Jai Sri Ganesh Jai Guru Ganesh Namo Namo. Om Sri Ganesh Jai Sri Ganesh Jai Guru Ganesh Namo Namo. Om Sri Ganesh Jai Sri Ganesh Jai Guru Ganesh Namo Namo. गणपति पार्वती सुतलंबोदर गणपति पार्वती सुतलंबोदर जय गुरु गणेश नमो नमो. जय गुरु गणेश नमो नमो. ओम श्री गणेश जय श्री गणेश जय गुरु गणेश नमो नमो. ओम श्री गणेश. विघ्नराज एकदं गणेश विघ्नराज एकदं गणेश जय गुरु गणेश नमो नमो. जय गुरु गणेश नमो नमो. ओम श्री गणेश जय श्री गणेश जय गुरु गणेश नमो नमो. बोलो. ज्ञान देवता सिद्धि विनायक ज्ञान देवता सिद्धि विनायक जय गुरु गणेश नमो नमो. जय गुरु गणेश नमो नमो. श्री गणेश जय श्री गणेश जय गुरु गणेश नमो नमो. ओम श्री गणेश जय श्री गणेश जय गुरु गणेश नमो नमो. जय गुरु गणेश नमो नमो. जय गुरु गणेश नमो नमो. बोले श्री गजानन स्वामी की जय. Devotees, this morning, let us listen to a very short story. Once, there was a group of fisherwomen. So you have fishermen and you have fisherwomen, the wives of the fishermen. These fisherwomen went to sell fish in the market. So they put the fish in these large baskets and they took it to the market. Luckily that day, all the fish sold out. So they took up the empty baskets and were on their way back home. They had to travel some distance. Unfortunately, a thunderstorm came and they were unable to make their way home. Fortunately, nearby, there was a flower shop. A florist lived there. Now, a florist is someone who sells flowers, doesn't do flooring, a florist. So, they approached this florist, and he was quite happy to let them spend the night. So the florist took them upstairs to his warehouse where he housed all of these sweet-smelling flowers, and he told them, you all could spend the night here. So they put their baskets one side, and they all lay down for the night to rest. However, after some time, they got up. They were restless. They were not able to sleep. So what was the problem? Apparently, the sweet smell of the flowers was too much for them to bear. They were not accustomed to this. So one of the ladies had a bright idea. She said, you know what? This is what we could do. We will get some water, sprinkle it in our empty fish baskets, and place them near us. So said, so done. They placed the baskets nearby, sprinkled some water in it, and that lovely scent of fish calmed them, and eventually they slept away. And so they were able to sleep for the entire night. The next morning they thanked the florist and they returned home. So what is the moral of this story? Such is the power of habit. So they were accustomed to this fish smell. This lovely, pure scent of the flowers was too much for them to bear. They couldn't take it. So too, if you live a life in materialism, a pure environment, a spiritual environment is too much for you to bear. You would not be comfortable at all. And it illustrates the power of habit, what you are accustomed to. So let us unpack this a little bit. We're going to speak a little bit about habit. What is a habit? You get up every morning. I assume you brush your teeth, you take a bath. You do a series of actions almost automatically. And these are referred to as habits. So a habit really is a regular tendency or practice. And it is especially hard to give up once you've established this habit. And we form new habits by practice, and these behaviors become automatic. That's a habit. So we all know that old habits are hard to break, and new habits are very difficult to form. Now, let's dip into a little bit of psychology, just for some background. So, these habits really are ingrained in our brains, in our neural networks. And the good news is that through repeated action, we can form new habits and maintain them. So, there are the 3 R's of habit change. And what are these 3 R's? Reminder, routine, and reward. So I'll give you an example to make it clear. The reminder is the trigger that initiates the behavior. The routine is the behavior itself, what you do. And the reward is the benefit that you gain from doing the behavior. So let's take an example. We all have cell phones, most of us do. So your phone rings. You get a reminder. It draws your attention. What's next? I have to answer my phone. Some of us, you can't help it. You get a text message. You have to check immediately. You have to answer the phone immediately. So this is a reminder. The phone rings. You get a reminder that initiates your behavior. The routine is you answer the phone. This is the actual behavior. So you pick it up. Hello. And then the reward is you get to find out who is calling and what information they have. So it could be a reward or a punishment, as the case may be, depending on who it is. and you answer accordingly. If it's your girlfriend, hello. If it's your wife, hello. Depending on who it is, you answer accordingly. So you have some reaction to who is calling. So we see here this simple example. You have the phone rings, the reminder. You answer the phone. That's the routine, the behavior that you've learned over time what to do. And then you find out who is calling, the reward. So if we examine our lives, we would see we are creatures of habit. We get up, we do certain things. We want to lose weight, we have a goal, we establish certain habits that will take us toward that goal. We have negative habits, we pass by the bar, we have to go in and take a drink. When we see the bar, we need to go. So the bar, for example, is a reminder, and I need to take a drink. The routine is go in and take a drink. Take many drinks. And what's the reward? Well, initially, I assume, I'm not a drinker, so I don't know, but you feel good for a time. But then afterward, you get a dip, and you don't feel so good. But you go back and you do it again, because it's a habit. So, understanding a little bit about habits, I want to address the issue of how do we form good spiritual habits. So, we need to have some idea of the goals we want to achieve, and then what habits we need to inculcate to achieve those goals, simply. So, first of all, the goals. What are your goals? In Sanatan Dharma, we have 4 goals. 4 purushartha, 4 objects of human pursuit, as we say. And these are Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. I'll explain each one briefly. Dharma, these are moral values. So I mentioned previously that Dharma deals with the laws that we follow, the system that we follow, your duties, your responsibilities, right conduct, etc. This is our Dharma. Next, Artha. This Artha is economic values. So, whatever we need to acquire for life, property, money, and other things. Essentials for life, basically, to survive. Economic values. Then we have Kama, and these are psychological values. So, pleasure, which brings us psychological pleasure. And finally, we have Moksha, which is spiritual values. So, Moksha, Mukti, liberation, supreme state, infinite consciousness, love, Brahm, same thing. Different words expressing that same state. Now, interestingly, do you think that these 4 goals all are achieved at the same time? Well, clearly, you cannot achieve them at the same time. For example, could you have Artha and Kam and Moksha simultaneously? So it doesn't happen that way. These goals embody a progression. So I've given them 1, 2, 3, 4 in a particular order because they occur roughly in that order. We have Dharma first. As a child, you grow up learning the rules, the morals, values, not so? Afterward, once you know how to operate, which rules to follow, then you achieve Artha and Kama. Your economic values or psychological values. But after a while, hopefully, you realize that these things do not bring you the happiness that you want, and then you seek moksha by giving up Artha and Kama. So, there isn't a contradiction here. It is said you cannot pass it unless you go through it. So, you achieve these things first, Artha and Kama, and then moksha. You give them up, and you seek liberation. So briefly, these are the goals of every Hindu, and in a broader sense, every person, if you think about it. So, those are the goals. Now we come to the habits. How do you inculcate proper habits to achieve these goals? So again, philosophy of Sanatan Dharma. We have the Panch Mahayagya, 5 daily obligations, the 5 checklist, if you will, the 5 baseline habits that we need to inculcate. Now, our sages were very, very wise. They instructed us to do certain things so that we could build these habits. There's a reason why we perform certain actions at certain times repeatedly. It's to build a habit. So, the 5 daily obligations, briefly they are: first, Devyagya, worship of God. On a daily basis, we should all worship that Supreme. We should pray. Importantly, we should all pray as families. A family that prays together stays together. And the point I'd like to make is, when we pray, whatever time we spend praying, we should focus on the intensity of that prayer. So let me give you an analogy. A lot of us here, I know, go to the gym, we exercise, we work out. We all know about interval training. So if you want to lose weight quickly, if you want to, burn off your excess fat, what you do, you go at low intensity first, then you speed up. You do high intensity for a while at an interval, then you slow down again. Then you do a high intensity again and slow down. So you see people exercising, they would spend an hour, 2 hours walking at a slow pace, but you could have someone else who would sprint, say, for 10, 15 minutes, and what happens afterward, they tend to burn off more of this excess weight. So the example here, what I'm trying to get at is intensity that is important. The intensity of the prayer, not the time spent doing it. So I thought I would make that point on prayer, Devyagya. This must be done every day, and whatever time you spend, it must be intense and focused. Secondly, Rishiyagya. We need to study the scriptures written by the Rishis. We have the Vedas, Upanishads, Puranas, various other texts, stories. On a daily basis, we must read a little something, at least one shlok, one story, something. And in this way, we repay our debt of gratitude to the Rishis. Then we have Pitriyagya, the ancestors. On a daily basis, how do we repay this debt? How do we inculcate this baseline habit? Well, we need to honor the ancestors by trying to live up to the values, the traditions that they taught us. We need to ensure that we are keeping up with this and also taking it further and passing on this knowledge to our children. Then we have fourth, Manushyagya, and this is repaying our debt to society by doing social service. In Swaha, we have various outlets for performing this social service, and on an individual basis, this is something that should be done every day, if not every day, as often as you can, repaying this debt to society. And finally, Bhutyagya, or as I like to say, service to everyone else, not people, of course. So the other forms of creation. We take care of animals, we give food to animals. In various ways, we could look after the other forms of creation. So these 5, Devyagya, Rishiyagya, Pitriyagya, Manushyagya, and Bhutyagya, these are to be done on a daily basis. Why? Because they cultivate these spiritual habits within us. Now, we all know when we get up in the morning and we're brushing our teeth, you're not thinking about brushing your teeth, are you? You're thinking about what you have to do for the day, you have to drop your children to school, and before you know it, you're finished brushing your teeth. You're driving to work in your car, you have a skill of driving, but something else is going on in your mind in parallel. So because these habits are so automatic, these actions just take place for themselves, and your higher level thinking is focused on something else. And this is the danger in habit. So, I would introduce a term that is quite popular these days, and that term is mindfulness. Mindfulness. You read a lot about mindfulness meditation. It's quite popular in dealing with people who have stress, anxiety, depression, even cancer patients. Mindfulness meditation. What is mindfulness? Well, mindfulness means that you do not allow actions to just take place by themselves. What you do is you focus on the present moment. You do not focus on the past, you do not think about the future, you settle your mind and you keep your attention on what is presently happening. So it's okay, you could brush your teeth, that is neither here nor there, I hope, once you brush for a minute or more and plus. You could brush your teeth and think about whatever else. But when you're doing these 5 daily obligations, you need to be mindful of what you're doing. So you have mindful and you have mindless. You want to be mindful of what you're doing, not mindless, no attention being paid. When you reach that supreme state, it switches. You become mindless. You're no longer mindful, not so? So, to overcome this disadvantage of habit, we need to always be mindful. So, I hope we understand the goals, we understand the habits required to reach the goals, and now a few tips and tricks. So again, our sage is quite wise. First of all, our sages have said, it is not possible to change a person's habit by advising him. Just like water becomes hot when you heat it, but it always turns cold, which is normal behavior, this happens in time. So it is not possible to change a person's habit by just advising him, just like water becoming cool after it is heated. So then I'm wasting my time. Well, actually, no. The main point here is I cannot change your habits. I could only advise you on what to do. I could only point out certain things. But at the end of the day, it is your choice to change your habits. It's only your choice. You will make that decision. You will implement the process, and you would change your own habits. So, you have to ask yourself, these 5 daily obligations, am I doing one? Am I doing none? Am I doing all? And what to do, take it a step at a time, little by little, add one on, and make it in such a way where it is very easy to add on a habit. So for example, you get up in the morning, you get ready to go to work, you make it a habit to go into the temple for 5 minutes before you head off. If you have a puja room at home, you say a prayer before you go. While you're driving, if you don't have the time for some reason, you pray while you're going in the car. As you sit in the car, that's a reminder. You say a prayer, that's the behavior, and then you will see the rewards coming in time. Second point. Now you have to listen to this one very carefully. Another subhashita. Among the ignorant, a well-read person is better. Amid the well-read, those who have a grasp of the material are a blessing. In the midst of those with a good grasp, those that have assimilated the knowledge are considered better. And among those that have assimilated the knowledge, those that put it into practice are deemed the best. So what's the point I'm getting at here? Among the ignorant, the well-read person is better. So he has some knowledge, hopefully. Among these well-read people, those who have a grasp of the material, they are a blessing. In the midst of those with a good grasp, those who have assimilated the knowledge, these are considered even better. And among those who have assimilated this knowledge, those that put it into practice are deemed the best of all. So the idea here is to start small and to do something. You have to start doing something. It's nice to sit and listen, it's nice to read, but if you don't do something, then you achieve nothing. I remember this in my PhD days. I like to read, I like to do research. So normally at the start of a research program, you spend some time reading, reviewing the literature, whatnot. A year had passed and I was still reading and reviewing the literature and whatnot. My supervisors called me and said, listen, you have to do something. You can't just read, you can't just listen. That is okay, but at some point, you have to do something. So this is critically important, and this is the main point that I want to drive home this morning. And to wrap it up, I remember the Shankaracharya, my guru. He always used to say this: an ounce of practice is better than a ton of theory. He always said laziness is his worst enemy, and you must always practice what you preach. So, practice makes perfect, and we all need to get started in perfecting ourselves by implementing and practicing these daily obligations, forming the right spiritual habits. Bole Sri Umapati Mahadev ki Jai.
Thank you very much, Pandit Umesh. And as we proceed to wrap up this morning's discourse, just a bit of advice. One very, very important habit we should inculcate is that of self-study. At the end of every day, as we lie down, as it were, to take that night's rest, introspection. We should inculcate this habit of going into ourselves. The only time I can know whether my habits are good or bad is when I critically analyze myself. We call that mati or self-study. Self-study is a very, very important practice which we should inculcate on a daily basis. And, as the saying goes, we weed out all the weeds of vices that exist within the soil of the mind, so we can allow the seeds of virtue to flourish. Make it a habit. Bole Vrindavan Sri Krishna Chandra ki